Imagine God as a body of resource from which you wish to draw something that you need. Now, if you're somebody who needs water, who is very thirsty, and you find a source of drinkable water, you will gather your hands together and plunge them into the depths of that water and bring those hands up to your mouth and drink. Perhaps you'll have containers for water that you can plunge into the liquid and draw in and then carry it with you, especially if your village is thirsty, your family is thirsty, if others who require water that are under your care are thirsty, you'll try to gather as much as possible. Perhaps you'll drink first, perhaps you'll drink last, but you will try to gather that life-giving, sustaining water. But what if it's not water? What if it's a different kind of source? How attentive to how much resource you get would you be if it was a lake of diamonds? And let's say for some reason you knew that the lake wasn't going to be there forever. It wasn't going to be there for long. But and the diamonds are about that big individually. Would you have the same attitude? Plunge your hands in, gather those diamonds, or take your shirt off, wrap a bunch of diamonds in your shirt, and then take them away from that place. This drawing, how we gather the resource before us, the value of that resource completely depends on the society, who you are, and how you can help others with it, assuming you're a good person, or help yourself with it if you're a very egotistical person. Entirely depends on the person in the situation, but think of a valuable resource, and you need that resource. The time constraint could be that you or your people need it very soon, or the resource is going to disappear very soon. How do you plunge your hands in? How do you plunge containers in? How do you get that resource, and in what attitude do you get that resource? I think that for most people, if it's a very valuable thing, like water to people that are thirsty, somebody who is thirsty and then their people are also thirsty, or diamonds and you're not thirsty, but you live in a capitalistic society that values diamonds, and you know that this resource is going to go away very soon. The grasping, the delving, and the gathering are with a similar attitude. So we want to get as much as we can because it is needed, or we realize that it is needed more long-term, so we want to gather as much as possible. But the need is still there. In many shamanistic societies, I think if you go back far enough, most societies hit a point of shamanism. Not as far back as we might think, but definitely hit a point of shamanism. There is this understanding of God, not as individualized personalities, not as a creator versus or above and separate from created. There's this understanding of God as this vast reservoir of resource that we need right now. And how we orientate our relationship and how we delve, how we gather that resource, how we gather that energy, how we gather that power that might be infinite. Or in some societies it's not infinite, but it's infinite. But the relationship is conditional on how we gather. How we choose to gather determines what we get in the end. Because when we think of this huge resource that we all want in some way, that can be any material, it's kind of our God. It's kind of what we seek, what we make at the base of who we are and try to achieve that. Whether it's spiritual power, spiritual understanding, enlightenment, diamonds themselves, water. Whatever we make our God is our relationship to the vastness that is the source that we're actually relating to. We might call God any number of names, view God in any number of forms, but it is the same source. It is how we draw that determines the kind of person that we are and for what reasons we're drawing upon that source. There is a kind of hunger in us as human beings, a hunger that we don't really understand what will fill that hole that we feel within ourselves. Some people that are very egotistical or very materialistic might think it's stuff. If you're hungry and it's stuff, it's a little bit different than if you're not hungry and it's things. It's a little bit different. So stuff can mean various things to various people. But for people who aren't starving, who aren't thirsty, we tend to make God that which we can collect because we identify with what we collect, whether we know it or not. And when we collect, we feel like there's more of us. We grow, we become bigger. Though that's not quite the case. There's that sensation of having more without actually being more. There's a few different gods that I'd like to talk about in reference to how we reach towards the source, because how we reach is the flavor of what we get back. But to me, this might not be true for you. All the different gods, all the different goddesses are different masks for the source and determine what we get back because we are determining how we reach. We are making the choice to reach in this way into the source through this personality, through this technique, through this culture, through this individual practice. That will determine what we get back. But we are all these things determine how we are reaching, but they're based on choice. So for a being like Hastur, the Yellow King, I've connected with my schizophrenia, with my madness through this being, through reaching in this way, through finding in this way. And what I have drawn back is an ability to accept my badness, but also an ability to reconcile my badness with what truly exists. The relationship between the isolated part of myself that is insane and sanity has gained cohesion, has gained connections that might not have been formed otherwise. And my acceptance of madness, at least partially, has come full circle to where I'm okay with that part of myself. And that was gained through reaching towards the source with Hastur in mind, with the Yellow King in mind, reaching in that particular way, and then gathering that resource energy and bringing it back to myself with those hands that have reached in a certain way. When it comes to connecting with my blood and my more, you could say, bearish animal instinct, and also magic in general. I would say that connecting with Odin has, or reaching towards the source with those names of Odin and with that intention and with that understanding of Odin, reaching towards the source, this conscious source of energy, reaching in that way, gathering it back. And when we reach, we also transmit, we also add to whatever that source is. But taking back, I've come to learn a lot about magic. I've come to learn a lot about the runes, a lot about myself, and a lot about my blood. But I was reaching in a certain way for Odin, and this is what I gathered back. And when it comes to the Divine Mother Kali, now, these different forces, these different ways of reaching, these different entities, they don't exist in a hierarchy, but I've been placing them in a hierarchy as I've been speaking to you. So, Hastur, Odin, and then Ma Kali. For me, Ma Kali is connected to my highest self, my deeper self, my journey as a spiritual practitioner, and my journey towards moksha, liberation, mukti. Not my relationship to my path of not being confined by this body, this identity, or even this single soul. That soul being the transient barrier just around itself that I wish to pop. That is what Kali is for me, that sword that will cut that last barrier between my highest self, everything else underneath being resolved into the higher self, and then my highest self being completely freed. The head of my highest self being cut off is the Divine Mother Kali. She is the highest for me in my own mental pantheon, because I reach from my highest. I am my highest when I am reaching towards her, at least in my own understanding. There's not desire, there's not madness, there's not a willingness to affect anybody else. It is just the internal aspiration to be free from all confines. That is the way that I reach towards the source when I am reaching with the Divine Mother Kali in mind. And then that is what I receive based on how intensely I am reaching and how dedicated I am to this way of reaching towards the source. But the Divine Mother is vast, and she is the highest to me in my own pantheon. I think that we all have to question how we're reaching towards God, this source, this energy, however you view it, the Holy Spirit, however you see it. Think about how you're reaching and how you're taking that energy within yourself. It entirely depends upon the effort as far as what result we gain. The understanding of these things, the acceptance of various truths determines how we reach. But when we reach well, when we reach with purpose, when we reach with our own uniqueness, we will gather the energy to ourselves and become more. But whatever you call the source, that doesn't matter as much. It's how you reach with one intention. If you're being real, or you're trying to lie to yourself or the source itself. Reach well, reach skillfully, and you shall find. At any rate, this has been a video about the source and various gods and how the process matters rather than the names that we use or the traditions that we come from. Thank you very much for watching. Like this video if you like this video at all, and feel free to share this wherever you like. And feel free to become a patron on Patreon at patreon.com/darkrealist, capital D, capital R. So on Patreon, I share all my YouTube videos, but I also share things that I write and some extra stuff that you won't see anywhere else but on Patreon. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. Reach well, find yourselves, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.